Dead Reckoning had a positive response. It had some mixed response as well, too. The box office, I know, wasn't necessarily maybe what everyone hoped for. Is there a reaction to that affected what this movie ended up being at all?
Oh, yes, there was, because look, we take all that stuff very, very seriously. And I'm not one to sit there and say, the audience didn't get it.
Right.
That's
These movies, you have to listen to the audience.
That's it. You work for them. And I said, okay, what didn't work for them and why? It would be very easy to say, Barbenheimer, and just blame it on that.
Right.
We did not factor that into our thinking. We looked at the film very, very critically and said, okay, where could we have gone better? Where could we have done better? How could it have been tighter? How could it have been simpler? And it could have been at the expense of other things that were important to us. We then said, all right, let's try to make a shorter movie out of this one. We pivoted and deconstructed the entire movie, and I built a nonlinear version of this film and shot it to be nonlinear in order to move certain critical scenes earlier in the story, particularly Mount Weather, the scene with Ethan and the president, because that's where the journey, Ethan's journey, kicks off. And it was very clear as soon as we assembled it, did not work. So Tom said, just make it linear. I made it linear, did not work. And when I made it linear, why it didn't work is every scene you put first was a scene where they were talking about the entity before you knew what the entity was.
Right.
Which is why we then created that opening, that cold intro that just says, here it is. And that's the big lesson for Tom and I, over and over and over again. There's just a point where you just have to say it. You just fucking tell them. And
we can dance around this all day, but let's just get it. Rip the Band-Aid and make it as entertaining as possible. Put it in Angela Bassett's mouth and it'll be good.
That's it. And that's why the scene where he confronts the entity, that scene contains within it everything I insisted could not be in the scene, and contains nothing that Tom insisted must be in the scene. It's a rejection of everything we believed it could or could not be, and we did it 2 days before we locked picture. We just said, "Here's just spell it out, just lay it all out." But I also, by then,
where he's talking to the entity,
that's talking to the entity. But I had also by then made a discovery, because I thought it needed to be visual, and was really fixated on the visual nature of it, and was frustrated with the visual nature of it from what I had originally imagined it to be. I'm glad I didn't do what I imagined it to be, because it wouldn't have been something. It would have been noisy. It would have been it would have left less to your imagination.
Yeah. What
I discovered was the essence of that. The essence of that sequence and what made it work was sound. And the way my sound team had discovered a way to mix that voice, particularly when you're sitting in a Dolby Atmos theater,
right?
Or when the movie comes to home media, to listen to that in a really good surround sound system, the entity really gets in your head, and it's very effective. That's one thing, the sound mix. The other is the music that Alfie and Max created 2 days before we locked picture. It was really incredible. They came in at the last minute with that cue that is totally different from everything else in the movie.
When's the movie done? When it's about to come out. When it's ready to come out, that's when you're done. I mean, you take what you can get. It's curious to me, like, his relationship with Gabriel, the backstory of Ethan that you kind of flash back to in Dead Reckoning Part 1, Marie, the character of Marie.
Yeah.
It seems like, was there an intent to go back to that more?
We did. Look, everything in the movie that you have questions about, we shot the shit out of.
I'm sure you did.
And because what matters to us, we hate exposition, but we don't avoid it. We shoot it and overshoot it, and over inform and over include, and then are constantly pulling it back. How much do you need to know? And the truth of the matter was that that flash to it at the beginning of the story coincides with a line of exposition that summarizes what that is. And I shot a backstory. I shot a sequence that told you a little bit more about their relationship. And the truth of the matter was that unless I made that movie, it's always going to feel somewhat ambiguous and open-ended anyway.
Right.
So we just said, screw it. The other thing was we knew because of the strikes and everything else, we were that much farther away from Dead Reckoning.
Right.
If it had come out the following summer, that would have been different. But there was so much distance on the movie, it gave us the permission we needed to just let Dead Reckoning go and make this a standalone movie.